And it's 7 versus 5.
Yeah, exactly. That's two more men.
How can you
That's true.
How can you beat those odds? I want to know if they're going to use all 7 players in the series
in the same time.
Hello and welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia, Season 10, Episode 24. We've got Emily here. Azael is out sick. And so welcome, Emily, first of all, to The Dive. She's back.
I think the last time I was here for MSI preview.
Yes, I think so. It's definitely a fun one. We're coming back after a different MSI, and we're coming back as a top 3 region in the world, baby.
Huge.
And hey, popping off. Honestly, MSI was great. It could have been even better. We were so close. One game from taking down HLE, and then HLE went full 5 as well to be able to take the entire thing versus BLG. So we were really, really close. But even so, with the accomplishments that they did for Lyon and even Team Liquid as well, I was really happy with their improvements and their showings on stage too. So yeah, I feel really good coming back after MSI.
Yeah. I hope it means that people will be looking at our region a little bit more, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Well, the dedicated dive viewers are all...
That's true. I'm already preaching to the choir here. So thank you, guys.
I'm so glad they beat Europe. After G2 beat T1, it's like, oh God, NA's never beaten T1. But then, it's just beautiful. They get 3-0'd by Lyon right afterwards. That's so good. Yeah. That's kind of like... we beat T1 by proxy.
you get a little extra. Yeah, it is interesting too because TL also beat KC 3-0 earlier. So we got the full grudge match, rivalry, older brother, younger brother, whatever type of
who's the older brother? Who's the younger brother? I haven't been informed.
I mean, I guess
the older brother.
I guess
we would be.
Our server was created first.
True.
So
I mean, there was LCS, and then they copied us with LCS, and then they turned into LEC. So
yeah, I mean, it definitely feels good to get the win over the rivalry, but of course, we're always looking for also the best of 5 win over LCK. That would have been so sweet if we were close. But we've got also something that happened at MSI and is going to happen this week on Friday that is coming up before the LCS weekend. Tune in for the show match. We're going to have our own North American Classic Showmatch, TSM versus CLG, my favorite rivalry of all time.
Yeah, with TSM High. When I think of TSM, I think of High. But obviously, Bjergsen couldn't be there. So it'll be cool seeing High there because me and him actually play tested a lot of Classic on GAT. And so he'll probably have a little bit of an edge. He can show everybody what's up. There's a lot of fun OP old picks. He played in some of our tests. He did the Soraka mid. He did Kassadin, Teemo mid. So a lot of fun stuff.
Well, that's good.
The return of his Teemo mid.
I don't know if Teemo's out with the initial Classic release.
Everyone kept telling me that Zed is super OP, so maybe it'll get banned because I know that's some of my fondest memories of High is the split pushing Zed. Yeah. I will say then, with that information, I'm pretty happy that Doublelift is on the opposing team from High because Doublelift also has previous experience because he just played it at MSI. So both teams have a little bit of previous experience and some sweaty tryhards on both sides.
Yeah, Doublelift played Vayne. That was one champion that when I first started playing Classic, I was so shocked at how much damage Vayne did because she actually hit really hard back in the day. She was an actual lane bully. But then you lane against Vayne now, and she can't even lane against anything bot lane. So she just goes top to bully melee champs. She just bullies people who can't fight back. But then, you play against the old Vayne, and you're just like, why am I just dying to her?
It was cool. Him and Wei Shao were looking a little dicey at first. However... Yeah, he and Zatai ended up popping off. Zatai with the top Lee Sin. That was a really, really fun show match. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Yeah,
I'm definitely looking forward to this one because it's also going to have so many, old memories cooked into it. It is unfortunate that Bjergsen has, some issues that he's not going to be able to play. But TSM versus CLG, still, I think if I had to pick one singular favorite memory of all of my time for League of Legends, I think it is the Madison Square Garden TSM versus CLG finals, just because that it really just felt like the peak of this game. You know, this thing that we had invested our whole lives into has just been exploding, and like the energy of all the fans filling this legendary arena to the rafters, and the noise was deafening, the hype was deafening, the storyline was just insane. And so I'm super excited for that show match. So definitely tune in Friday. We have some special surprises for you there as well. We also have some special merch that we got to point out here. We got the Amumu, if you want to pick this up. And what else we got? The classic PC
yeah, this
game
is actually
box.
a physical box.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
That's
I totally forgot.
See this sucker? It does. All right, you can put some stuff in your memory box here, I guess.
Yeah, your CD-ROM where you first installed League.
I totally forgot that League was a.
It did. You didn't have to play it like that. Even in beta, I never actually bought the PC box. I just downloaded it. Yeah, same. I know Travis is really proud though that he had the physical one.
He still has it on display, right?
I think so. I think so.
That's like a sick trophy, you know? That's a relic.
Yeah.
Kids these days don't know what a CD is.
True. Okay, so down to business, okay? Down to business. We are coming back from MSI, you know, top 3 region in the world.
Somewhat triumphant.
So what we got to do is power rank these teams from this exceptional region. And honestly, I think we'll just let's go through each of our individual power rankings, because honestly, they're extremely similar. Yeah, extremely.
Meteos and mine are identical.
they were almost going to be all 3 identical.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's coming in a summer split now. So we've seen, I feel like it's a little bit harder to judge in the beginning of the year when it's like, you know, huge changes and you've never seen half these teams play together and stuff. There's a lot of new people coming in. Yeah. But at this point, we've seen them for the whole year. And I think, should we just start with our top 2? Because everyone has the same top 2.
Say your whole list.
You want me to go? Okay.
Yeah, we'll just say each of our whole lists, and then we'll discuss especially the ones that are a little bit different, where I have 2 a little bit different. And then the things that we are going to be able to have maybe give a little wiggle room are the roster changes, so we can go into each roster change.
Sure. Too. Yeah, so I've got Lyon number 1. That's a bit of a
surprising.
Yep, and then I've got TL number 2, which that's probably a surprise for my rankings, because I've always had C9 as number 1 for most of the time, and then last time was like the first time putting it number 2, and I just have to keep moving them down. I've got I have C9 number 3, then I have Fly at 4, then Sentinels 5, Shopify Rebellion at 6, DSG at number 7, and Dig in 8th.
Yeah. We'll throw up a graphic. I'm checking with producers' eye contact right now. That'll be beautiful, beautiful motion graphic with, player heads and everything, and like lasers coming out of their eyes.
That is sick.
But mine is very similar. Emily already said hers is literally
mine literally is also
same
the same that Meteos said. So in case you didn't catch it, Lyon, TL, C9, FlyQuest, Sentinels, Shopify, Disguised, and Dignitas in that order.
And then mine, I have very similar, except I have switched. I put FlyQuest above Cloud9, and I put Dignitas above DSG are my 2 kind of swaps, even though we didn't even know what each other's rankings were going to be, but they're fairly similar to how these teams place, like you talked about in spring already. But let's go into all of the roster changes, starting from the very top. Lyon.
Yeah.
They're not going to have Inspired for the first, they said 2 to 3 possible weeks. Inspired said, they put out a video where he said that it's nothing serious, but he's going to be in Poland taking care of some stuff. Kind of a funny video.
Yeah, nothing bad. I just have to be there.
But it is cool. I think it's going to be kind of cool, because this will be a test for Lyon, where we get to take away one of the biggest stories of this team is always his shot calling. And honestly, he didn't have like the best individual performances in his most recent games, either MSI or even EWC. And so we're kind of removing the individual performances and the shot calling. And they have leaked. It's on the front page of Reddit right now. I'm not going to say confirm whether this leak is guaranteed happening or not, but it is on the front page of Reddit right now that Armeo is going to be filling in. And that seems like not only are you taking away this shot caller that kind of gives a lot of direction to Lyon, but you're also putting in a guy who has not been keeping up with like tier 1 jungling. He's been playing some top lane and stuff, but this is a huge change for the team.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how long has it been since Armeo played? Because he's a guy who's been around the scene for a really long time. Usually coming in as like a 6th man for some teams. He started a couple times in LCS, but he never really had sort of like a super breakout season. He's not bad by any means, but I don't think he won any splits or anything like that. But a solid player. Not sure how long it's been though. Like you said, I don't know if he's been keeping up with tier 2 or anything like that.
Yeah, I think. Right?
23. Okay.
Either 23 or 24.
Well, the last match on the LoL wiki is he says he have the games at the end for the NACL qualifiers in 2026. So it does say that he has at least some games here with Cupid Esports. But it doesn't show like the individual ones under matches. Just has the tournament qualifier there. And previous to that, with UCI, he was also playing top lane. Mm-hmm. And as of what he's doing right now, he's been working on a website for like pro coaching where they use actual pro League of Legends players to give people coaching. So he is definitely like not locked in as far as the, especially like tier 1 competition, but you're not going to hold that against him individually. No. It's just saying for Lyon, it is going to be more difficult because he's, going to be fairly rusty.
I think it's less rusty than I expect. Looking at that, he played at least in a competitive match at the end of May. So that's pretty recent, all things considered. We had the show match with the doubleless retirement home, and that was one where some people like really hadn't played the game in a long time, which was super funny. So I think he'll be a little bit more recent than them, but you just have to fill inspired shoes. How hard could it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me isn't the individual performance, but kind of to Kobe's point, where like he wasn't having these like insane standout performances necessarily individually, but I think he's just such a huge part of the way that this Lyon team plays and the overall team play style. So it'll be interesting to see how the team performs following his absence for these first few weeks. Because like we've seen in other teams when someone who has such a strong voice, not only in terms of like shot calling in like a micro sense, but also just overall team play style. Like I feel like a lot of Lyon's patience, especially around objectives, and when they're willing to cede objectives and when they can recognize it's actually a smarter move to be like, we're not going to challenge this Rift Herald because we know we're going to get like plates, bot, and tier 1 mid or whatever, right? And you could see that in particular in their games, like most recently at MSI against Team Secret Whales. There were some really, really stark places where they would cede an objective very easily and get so much more on the map. So the thing I'll be most curious about is how they look in these first few weeks, because this isn't against the individual players on the team, but overall what the direction of Lyon is going to be. If they're going to continue that play style, try to branch out, like what that would look like.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting because we've also gotten, because Lyon put out their own voice comms as well, in addition to LCS doing voice listen-ins. And we've heard actually Saint talk a lot and make calls, and Dokla talk a lot in them as well and make some calls. And so it'll be very interesting to see what kind of fills in the space and how they operate without Inspired in there. Lending a lot of direction, because they still all, especially in interviews afterwards on stage and stuff, talk about how, it makes it so easy when Everybody's has the same vision and game plan as far as, how to play at the draft and everything like that. So this will be a very cool experiment. And we all have still put Lyon at number 1 because we still believe that they are the best team in the LCS, even though first couple weeks maybe won't have that same level. I definitely could see them losing like the opener to FlyQuest or something like that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think but then if you look at the rest of their schedule, I think it's Dignitas and Shopify, if I'm not mistaken. I think Shopify and then Dig in that order. Let me double check to make sure I'm not talking out of my butt. But so they'll play Shopify in week 2. And then Dignitas in week 3, who I think are opponents that they would be favored against. So they do get a little bit of a break schedule-wise in terms of the expectation of the teams they're facing. So their toughest match without Inspired should be this week 1 match, which is pretty hype between them and FlyQuest.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to see how the team does because if we remember in the beginning of the year, Lyon didn't look that good. There was everyone sort of theorizing that they're just going to implode because they have so many strong personalities, and they were not on the same page, but they've ramped up so well. And it's to no surprise it's under Inspired's leadership. So, what do they look like without him? I remember coming into this year, we had a similar question about FlyQuest because their team's a little bit different now, but they had been a team that had been sort of led by Inspired with Quad and Masu and stuff. And so they didn't look as good without him. Leaves a very big hole in the team. So like you said, it's going to be a cool experiment. We'll see. Maybe they're just good enough as players. Or maybe just do whatever you want, man. Honestly, just get out there and just have a good time. And your lanes will carry you, perhaps. Or maybe they'll just look completely clueless and be like, damn, we need Inspired back.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun. Moving on to number 2, consensus number 2, Team Liquid. Team Liquid also, like I said, I was impressed with their improvements that they showed at MSI. And even though, they're losing these games versus T1, I still think that the way that they played, and especially some individual performances like Morgan, seemed like night and day. He was so much better. It seemed like he was really rising to the level of competition at MSI. His individual play, I felt like at that tournament was so much better than all of that he has shown previously here in LCS, even at the very beginning of LCS when he came in very hot too. So I'm hoping that TL can keep that same momentum, and I'm guessing that's what you guys also believe is going to happen because you've also both put TL number 2.
Yeah, I mean they look solid. Like you pretty much mentioned all of it. They looked great at MSI, and Jose Dioto's been doing really well. Really fun jungler to watch. And I just can't put C9 higher than them, unfortunately. I would love to. I think if this was just regular season power rankings, I could totally see C9 ending first place because, maybe Lyon drops some games without Inspired, or maybe they drop games with Inspired as well. I've always heard from pro players that it feels really different playing against Inspired in the regular season versus playoffs. I heard that he actually just plays differently. Like, maybe he's just playing a little looser during the season. He doesn't carry that much. Maybe he's experimenting or whatnot. So I wouldn't expect Lyon to be an undefeated team or anything like that. In C9, I don't know. They just go full throttle in the regular season and then run out of gas in playoffs. It's just kept happening. So I would like to see them break the curse, but it has been a while at this point, and it's consistent. It sucks. It's a really sad narrative to have for the team, but yeah, I can't put them above TL anymore.
I'll save my C9 thoughts for when we talk about C9, I think, next. But for TL, I think Kobe, you brought up Morgan. The other story is definitely Quid, I'd say, and he was such a huge part of their lower bracket run. They, to, I guess, pull C9 back in, they absolutely thrashed C9, and I think a lot of it was due to the performance from their solo laners, like improving a lot with their overall team. And then Jose took like a slight dip, I think, at the very end of the regular season, but then picked it back up, and he was just like phenomenal. I thought even in their losses at MSI, like that Poppy game he had was like insane. So if they can rely on him to be as good as he was, and their solo laners because I do think something unlocked in Quid in terms of his feelings towards the team. And I know you guys have brought it up on previous dive episodes and we've brought it up on broadcast, but that interview he gave where he was like, oh, I realized like I don't have to step back because anyone can carry on this team. I can just say like, I will be the carry. And like, I think the team itself also really supported him. Like the first pick Akali is like not something that teams do, even if you do have a really good Akali player. So I think that really showed me at least that they're ready to kind of take a massive step up going into Split 3 and hopefully become that kind of team that everyone was, talking about in scrims since Split 1, and really show it on stage week to week. Because I think, Quid in particular, like really seemed to return to a lot of his best form throughout that lower bracket run.
Yeah, I mean, I still have some questions for their bottom lane, for especially Yon's side of it, because actually I think Core JJ was really good too, especially these MSI games. He had, his rel game was exceptional as far as a lot of these engages that he was getting. He was not hesitating at all. His mechanics look really clean. It was like young man Core JJ.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was like, "Whoa, this is vintage Core JJ." Yeah, okay.
He's like, Q flashing people. He's getting ult combos on people. It felt like, young man
the
Core
demonic
JJ
Pantheon returning. Yeah, it's a good meta for him too, with supports like really not spending any time bot lane now.
Yeah, high impact roaming, engage supports, that type of stuff look really good, and his performance was really on point too. It's one of the things I hope that does continue from MSI. If they could get Yon back to peak Yon, like this team would be terrifying and definitely could be one of the teams that topple Lyon. Of course, it's kind of hard saying that after our finals where the Lyon just turbo blasted them 3-0 after we're like, oh cool, maybe TL's gonna do something. They just 3-0 Cloud9, right? And then Lyon will turn around and 3-0 them, and we're like, what the whiplash? But the potential is definitely there, and especially after getting some good international practice and games in, and more time playing as a team. I'm definitely hopeful as far as their ability to challenge, and especially like we said, if Yon can get to the peak there, because it does seem like their shot calling, there is a little bit of like their late game macro where they still feel reactive in some situations where you pretty much always feel like Lyon have already set out their whole game plan like 10 minutes in advance. And there's a lot of situations where TL, it looks like they're reacting, to much slower, I guess, to some of their calls. But it did seem like a lot of their setups really improved. And so I definitely think it bodes well, especially if they can keep up some of the peak performances. And especially no one's gonna forget to ban Lee Sin from Jose.
Don't give Jose Lee Sin.
It got nerfed a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think maybe not since MSI.
Yeah, and
I think he'll still play.
G2 gave it to him, and with the nerfed version, and he slapped him up with it.
Yeah, he's great on Lee Sin. I wouldn't give it to him if I was going to play against him. That's for sure.
Not G2, no. KC, excuse me.
Yeah. I really like your call, Emily, about the meta thing as well, because I remember when they first pulled out their Mel Pantheon bot, I thought it was kind of a troll pick. I thought it was one of these just like desperation, we're going to just pick some totally cheese stuff and win through the early game. And they did actually have a really good early game that game, but it didn't work out. But now we're kind of seeing that just be what people are playing. It happened a lot of MSI with these mages bottom, and then supports just, having the time of their lives, picking like Hillblade, Skarner, and Camille, and just running around everywhere.
Thank you, On, for that one.
And so I think that's something I could actually see that being really relevant for Summer Split, because I think supports are generally, it's the role and it's kind of random for teams for what meta it is, because there's some players that are just really good at enchanter metas. They're good at playing safe and supporting their team. There's some players that are really good at engage metas. And so if it's like a roam heavy meta, I feel like Core JJ would love that. I think that's sort of always been his strength as a player. Just, just being annoying to play against, honestly, just showing up in places you don't expect or want him to be, and just, playing Pantheon, playing Poppy, whatever it is, and just doing these like really aggressive roams. So if the meta stays like that for this split, I could see TL looking really good.
Yeah, we have a slight harbinger because I was just doing this for fun as a project, but I happen to have my spreadsheet open where I'm tracking going into split 3, like mages bot versus traditional ADCs. And already in the Kespa Cup, we've had 17 out of 36 potential bot lane picks be mages, 15 be traditional ADCs, and 2 be top lane bruisers.
Yeah.
There's a Scion and Mundo. So that also, again, if you do want that kind of like super roam style from really early on, there are a ton of mages being played in bot lane still. So it does look like that will be the meta that we'll at least be starting split 3 with.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of people talking about the win rates of mages at MSI, and not necessarily taking into account that a decent amount of the games are mage bot versus another mage bot. And it's not like, this win rate is just mages bot versus AD carry bot, and you get like such a clear indicator of which one is better.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the games, it's going to be 50% off of this game because both of them are mages bot.
Yeah.
One is going to win, one is going to lose, type of thing. So it deserves the eye test, obviously, and it's about how you use it. And of course, the biggest thing, and I know you definitely agree with this, is about how these supports are like second junglers basically now, and they are
jungle combo.
They're so impactful, and being able to use, especially the experience catch-up mechanic, is so powerful for supports because their role quest only makes you basically locked into bot lane till level 3, and then you like get freedom and you get to
a whole 3 levels.
3 levels you got to be down there, and then
long as 2 minutes of my life.
Yeah, then you get to go play like all these champions that were designed to be, proactive, like top lane or whatever type of carries, like Camille and Pantheon and type champions here, and you get to go impact the map, and then after you get behind very far in experience, then you can kind of slink back to some minions and soak up some comeback experience. So it is quite an interesting, very like action-packed meta. I'm not really against it at the moment, as long as there is still room for like heavy win bot lane combinations, which I think there is.
Yeah, I think
and I think those can be very successful. And we've seen like lots of, like Caitlyn or whatever style bottom lanes that are going to play for turret plate money and try and do
Kalista, Lucian. We've still seen that in Kespa Cup too.
Yeah, try and do that. It's just that if you're not able to punish bot lane and get turret play money for the enemy team, like if the wave clear on Ziggs or whatever is too insane, then it becomes kind of weird. So like super excited to see it. I also really like the the TL. They pulled out Tristana Rel as a counter to the Ziggs Camille.
I loved that.
And then no one else did it, and they didn't repeat it either. And so I felt kind of let down because I thought that was another cool evolution, and that's why I really enjoy when meta's constantly changing and you're finding a counter to the new counter. Because
I will say I think that was Lyon, but it was Berserker.
No, it wasn't. It was TL. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, Tristana Rel.
Never mind.
It was Yana Core JJ, and no one else did it, and I really did like that because they focus on the Camille, shatter off the shield, Tristana rocket jump in, even though they messed up the first attempt and Berserker ended up dying without flashing the Ziggs bomb, then they still were able to get their 2v2 kill anyway. So so I really like that, and I hope that TL can continue their success.
Same.
FlyQuest though is my number 3. Your guys' number 3 is Cloud9, and we should probably start with talking about Cloud9 because they've got the big roster news. Meteos' favorite situation in the world, 7-person roster.
I actually haven't followed this one, but
7-person
roster, that's so many people.
So you already don't like 6-person rosters.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah, so now they've got 7, so they've added on. And by the way, I think this this it time synced up with Enero kind of leaving, so there was a lot of movement on Cloud9 with coaching staff leaving as well. So Enero left and they signed Yamato also onto the coaching staff, and Dom has moved into head coach, and that has coincided with the team bringing on both Loki back to the team for mid lane to play alongside APA, and I'm blanking right now. Bot lane tactical, and they brought
like
tactical as well to play. So yeah, so 7-person roster.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe they have like their playoff ringers or something. They're trying a new strat. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the big rosters personally, but I guess they just figure it'll help. Maybe the flexibility will help. Maybe just the motivation for the starters will help. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm generally against 6 and 7-man rosters unless there's a very specific reason you're doing it. I think it's really difficult to juggle that many personalities who obviously all want to play. And it's also, even for the ones that have worked for a time, either due to synergy or meta, really difficult to tell someone who wants to play like, oh, we need you to sit this one out because we want to play this, right? Or whatever. And usually a 5-man roster emerges from the 7 men to just become the starting roster. So yeah, like I think the only really, really strong 7-man roster that like I kind of hold up is like, oh, okay, this worked until they lost at 2018 Worlds was the RNG 2018 roster with both Let Me and Zatai top, and then MLXG and Karsa in the jungle position. C9 also pretty much the only NA team I'd say to actually have success with a 7-man lineup during the Swole Bros era, with Golden Glue and Jensen splitting time in mid lane, and Blabber and Svenskeren splitting time in jungle. So it is possible to do. I just think it is, to Meteos' point, incredibly difficult for all of the reasons that I already said. Like, I think it's already difficult to get 5 people on the same page, and then when you're swapping personalities out, people, like, even taking all of the in-game stuff out of it, people just receive and dispense information differently, and you have to like mitigate different sorts of conflicts and stuff like that. So I think it can be quite difficult. From the stuff that C9 has put out, it does almost seem like more, or you get the sense that it's more of an extended trial period. So we'll see, like, if they do, again, just a 5-man roster rises out of the ashes of the 7-man roster to just kind of take over. Another thing to point out is obviously very small sample size, but the rosters that they kind of did run in the Soup Invitational that they were a part of over in Korea was Loki and Sven, and then APA and Tactical. The APA Tactical roster did win the game, the one game that they won in that. So obviously, like, that's incredibly small sample size. I'm not coming in being like, the APA Tactical lineup is going to take over the LCS. But it is kind of an interesting preview of like what they might be looking at for line combinations and stuff like that. I do think that despite their struggles in playoffs, I do think that APA can still be an incredible jungler for Blabber, just purely based on play style. And I also think some of his champ pool now, with mages being played bot, allows for some flexibility. So I'll be curious if Tactical is going to be one of those more flexible players, because when I think of Sven, I definitely, like, he obviously flexed to support, so I'm not saying he isn't flexible, but I definitely think of more like classic AD carries. So we'll see. I'm really curious, specifically with all the meta shifts, to see how C9 do with presumably rotating their players.
I think they saw Tristana's getting played, and they said,
"God, bring Tactical.
I know just the guy for this."
You're bringing back the Malphite.
Yeah, man. I'm ready for it.
Dude, that's a classic
good.
tactical meme was the Malphite ulting Tristana. But it was actually very, I feel like, controversial, them bringing on these two players at this time. And I think it was very interesting because I thought APA was doing really well in mid lane and was a kind of a key part of this C9 team. And so if they had gone the route of fully replacing him and bring on Loki and then not having 7-man roster, I think for sure he would get gobbled up by one of their competition. Not Lyon, like Lyon are replacing Saint, maybe not the peak of the tippy top of the LCS, but for sure would get gobbled up and added on to one of these other LCS teams. So I'm very curious to see what it looks like because now we get like a view of the alternate timeline, like the branch where they were able to keep
Loki
Loki
left.
anyway.
Yeah, he didn't have to go home.
Because Cloud9 themselves didn't want to part ways with Loki. They did for personal reasons, and he wanted to go back to be close with his family, and so now we kind of get a peek, I guess, of him being back with the team / on the team, and then competing with APA, who I think is performing really well. And I agree with you as far as the style does pair quite well for the possibilities with Blabber, because APA has done a lot of setup. He had been working around Vision really well, especially with his like anti games for initiation, and playing a lot of setup mid laners. So that's very interesting. As far as the bottom lane, I think fans were very positive on that one because a lot of fans had a magnifying glass on Sven as far as some of the mistakes that he had been making, especially towards the end there. So, and Tactical had been putting up crazy numbers in NACL. And in NACL playoffs, really good performances. So Tactical, it's going to be very interesting to see, can he keep up with the pressures of tier 1 again? Because he's always been very high highs and then kind of alluding to some of the memes and joke plays, right? Also some fairly low lights. So I always thought that it was cool when he was paired with Core JJ, because you have this really like comforting veteran on your team there, and I think Vulcan as well, can provide a lot of that comfort, safe feel for the bottom lane. So it's going to be really interesting tracking Tactical and see if this is going to be his second shot, or the possibilities are going to be here on this team. 7-person roster, I agree. It usually boils down to the 5.
Yeah.
Hey, at least I'm excited to see Tactical again, because while I do think it would probably extended more than just a meme, he really likes playing aggressively, too aggressively often. It ended up biting him more than you would like for your AD carry, just because it's the role that's not supposed to do that, probably more than any other role. But it is fun to watch. And I think it's one of those things where, with more experience, I don't think it's a bad play style. Obviously, to an extent. But it's at least one of those things where you're losing on your own terms. If you're playing too aggressively, then you can just sort of chill out or measure it better and do it at the right time, which I think is better than someone who's just kind of like losing by like playing slow and just messing up things. So I don't know. I think it'll be fun to watch them.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
We will see how Team Liquid or how Cloud9 do with that. But FlyQuest. So I wanted to bet on both kind of the uncertainty of bringing on 7-person roster and kind of the underlying stuff that we got from C9 in playoffs, and as well as the positives for FlyQuest in doing my little switcheroo where I put FlyQuest above Cloud9 for my power rankings, because I do think that it's not, just like a negative look at kind of how Cloud9 fell off in playoffs. It's also a very positive look at what FlyQuest have been building, and from their boot camp and from the streams from Griffin and stuff, and from talking to them, it has also continued to be some really strong improvement and learning experiences for them. Continue to play in Korea. They were there overlapping with us when we were in Daejeon. They were in Seoul, still playing. And I feel like everybody was on the same page as far as the peak for this team could still be really high. They're all very young, and so you're giving them a lot of kind of runway to improve over the course of the year. And we had Griffin himself literally saying, by summer, we're going to be top 3. We're going to get a world spot. And honestly, I think they're on track to do that. So I had to put them top 3.
No, I mean, I like that. I like that bet, especially since when I tell people oh, you should watch the LCS, FlyQuest would be one of the teams that I would immediately point to and be like, this is such a creative team, right? Griffin was validated from spamming the Nasus and the Shyvana and solo queue, right? And I think they do have the potential to really pop off in the current meta as well because of that. Masu doesn't have the biggest history of playing mages specifically. Senna is his most fourth played. He's 5-3 on Ziggs. But I think he is flexible enough. We've seen him bring out other answers, they brought out the Cog Lulu lane, I think, into the Lucian Melio. I think he's someone who is willing to experiment, and I think the entire team is willing to experiment. I remember that time that they were betting on Gakkos Quinn, for example. And that's something that most teams I'd be ooh, because not that Quinn is bad and not that it was a bad matchup, but she gets to a point where if you're not splitting up these massive 5v5s that people are having around Drake, she's just going to be kind of useless and soaring around trying to look for pick-off targets. And if you allow the other team to set up for a specific front to back, she's not going to be able to do anything. And the way they were able to set up and split up team fights so Gakkos could get into fights and pick off or damage priority targets, I thought was really smart. And kind of a window into if they continue on this trajectory, that's really good because they understand how to pull off something here that's actually really difficult, and not every team can do it. They're not that consistently, and I think that is because they're really young, and they themselves have said that, oh, we just kind of fell apart in this game, or we lost our minds afterwards, after some of their losses. They've also been just really honest about it, which I always appreciate from hearing from their players as well. They're just a really fun team. But yeah, I think they have even though I did put Lyon, I put C9 third, and FlyQuest fourth, I do think FlyQuest have the potential to really, really continue to punch up with steady improvement.
Yeah, they're a team that I think for me, because they're young, I am definitely going to be interested to see how they adapt to the meta stuff, because so far to me it feels like FlyQuest, when they're doing their thing, they're really good. I think they can rival any of the top teams, can take games series off of any of the best teams when they're playing the stuff that they're good at, which is, I think, Gakkos on carries, Griffin on non-meta weird picks. I think that's definitely his strength. A lot of times they lost, it was when he was on more meta stuff. Not to say he's horrible at it or anything like that, but I feel like it's just not really his strength. And then Quad likes his control mages. Masu's great on scaling carries, and then Cryogen has played a lot of the ranged enchanters and bard type champions. So I feel like that's not really the meta we were seeing most recently from MSI, with the super roaming Camille supports and melee mids, which, I mean, they're not the only thing being played, but I think Silas is really strong right now, Akali, Yone, etc. And so we're going to have to see how they can adapt to that, because that is tough and it is fearless. So even if you're really strong at one certain thing, you're not guaranteed to get it. So I think they've been awesome to watch, though. I'm optimistic about them. I think they could easily get top 3. I think I wouldn't even be surprised if they went to Worlds at all. So I think they got what it takes.
Yeah, it's always fun to watch them play, because they very often draft a lot more damage than most teams and a lot less tankiness.
Yeah.
So inherently, all the fights in the game are going to be quicker, more exciting, because there's more damage. There's less kind of leeway to just tank damage. Positioning is very important. And side lane is really important too. And so I'm glad that a lot of the matchups, we get different looks. than the teams having very similar ones. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they adapt, especially because, like you're saying, with Griffin being very flexible from jungle, it allows them to very often have whatever tankiness they're going to get usually does come from jungle. There's going to be some Griffin pick like Skarner or Shen or something like that. I think it does kind of keep the rest of our teams very sharp too when you need to prep a wide variety of stuff for a tournament like Worlds where you have to be ready to adapt.
Yeah.
And I feel very confident in our top four. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to discuss the bottom four and then the matchups for week number 1.
Dude, this lobby is kind of comfy. It feels different.
If this is different, I like different. I'm staying right here.
Are you guys serious? We're about to get into game.
Emily, let us enjoy it.
You guys need to lock in. Maybe this'll help.
Oh no, not already.
Welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia. We have some LCS tickets that are live for our opening weekend. We still have some spots, especially for Sunday. You should definitely come join us. We've got a little tailgate party here in Los Angeles. So if you are around, then queue up into the ticket line and join us. And we'll continue here. So we are up to number 4 or number 5 now, as we just did the Cloud9 and FlyQuest very close in the standings, down to Sentinels. And we all had Sentinels still here. It feels correct that we still have Sentinels as basically what everyone kind of thought of them when you first saw this lineup, and then still throughout, all of the performances. And they just feel like you can count on them. They're solid in the middle. A lot of veterans here to make you feel comfortable. They do have a little bit of craziness, which comes from Hambach. He's had some big moments. He has some good mechanics. He has had a lot of Skarner wins, but this is the team I feel like that will surprise me the least. What are your guys' takes? Why do you have them right in the middle?
So I have them in the middle just because I think they're wildly inconsistent from series to series and even game to game within a series in terms of how well and coordinated they can play. The thing I think that could allow them to punch up if it does happen is that I actually think Hambach and Huhi as a jungle support duo are ready. Because jungle support, again, very important. I'm not going to let anyone forget that. But in this meta specifically, I can actually see them popping off a lot, where Huhi is just constantly leaving lane, and then it's kind of going to be on Rahel whether he can play these mage picks or like not traditional AD carries as well as traditional AD carries, because that's the wrench in where, like, we talked about Fly, and my question in that bot lane isn't Masu. It's okay, how well is Cryogen going to be able to adapt when, to Meteos' point, he was playing a lot more ranged enchanters and seemed to be a lot more comfortable with those. With this team, it's kind of the opposite with their bot lane, where I think Huhi will be, again, incredibly comfortable with impacting the map. I think that's one of his strongest suits when he's unlocked from bot lane and is able to affect the rest of the map and essentially become a second jungler alongside Hambach. It gives them a lot of flexibility if they can pull it off. My question is whether Rahel will be able to kind of step in and be as flexible as they might need him to be. How Impact is going to be performing in top lane and kind of continuing to really, really test the limits of trying to widen out his champion pool to play more of these ranged matchups in top lane. And then Darkwings, I think, has had some, like, actually he's been surprisingly solid for me.
Very
he's
good,
like,
I think,
performed better than I expected. So I do think there are just so many question marks in terms of, like, individual and team performance from game to game, where, like, if you told me, like, oh, Sentinels upset Lyon and beat them, like, 2-0, right? I'd be like with Inspired on team. I'd be like, okay, like, I can see a world where that happens. Like, I wouldn't be, like, on the floor being like, what? Like, that's crazy. It also wouldn't necessarily be my expectation. So I think that's where it is, where like I think their average performance is, like you said, exactly where we kind of put them. And I think they have potential to be both worse and better than that.
Yeah, Sentinels to me is definitely one of those teams that's better than the worst teams by a lot, but I think also worse than the better teams by a good amount. I think that this past split, it seemed like they got a lot of wins playing their Skarner Caitlyn comp, where it just looked like Humbox was so much more effective on Skarner than other champions. And I think Rahel, to like a more higher extent, he was really good at Caitlyn. They won most of their Caitlyn games, but some of his games on other champions, like his MF game, I think final game of their season, was like super rough. I think he's had some of the, hardest feeds of any player.
Some of the hardest feeds.
Yeah, I mean, when he's off of Caitlyn and whatnot, he's had some pretty rough games and rough plays. So I think this team is definitely not bad, but I think especially when it comes down to being super flexible, if people now know what their strengths are, they know what champions not to give Sentinels, are they able to find success in other ways? I think they have really good teamwork. I think that their team play is good, their communication and whatnot, their vibes seem really good. But when it comes down to their laning phase and their flexibility and all those different things, it feels like they're probably going to get behind more often than not, especially when you go up against some of the better teams. And it's just, League is one of those games. If you're not winning your lanes, if you're losing every lane, there's only so much you can do. You kind of are just weaker than the other team and you don't have many options. So I think I don't expect them to be top 4, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they do win. I think that there's probably some comps that work for them. If they do manage to get like a solid footing in the game, I think that their team play is really good. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I'd put them.
Yeah, I especially like their front to back team fighting. It just feels like they're most comfortable and they can win fights and win games. Even we've seen them have some of the biggest comebacks in LCS. We had one of our best graphics of the
Huhi
Balboa knocking the gold lead up, and his inspirational comms of it just takes one team fight to win, and then they actually win a team fight, and then they can actually win the game when they were down like 7,000 gold. But I really do feel like they benefit a lot when they have some kind of, I would say, straightforward. That maybe that's why I feel like this is the team where I feel comfortable with, getting what I kind of expect out of them, is that especially if they have a good like front to back team fighting, Darkwings has been really good for a North American mid laner, and especially coming from tier 2, like the expectations for North American mid laners honestly have been very low. Like JoJo was definitely the exception that we've ever had. And I think Darkwings has done a excellent job, performing, especially, considering the competition I think is quite good here in North America as well. So really do think that he has performed well, and especially, like you're saying, most comfortable on some of these control mages. Does throw on Silas a decent amount as well in there, but we'll see how flexible Sentinels can remain when metas are shifting. And it does seem like the balanced team is going to take a more heavy hand, because the recent months have been very, very like kitty gloves or like hands off as far as like big changes in the meta. And now that MSI is over, some of the recent posts they've been talking about looking at making some bigger swings and seeing where it goes, especially with bottom lane changes being so impactful. So I will be very curious to see how Sentinels do adapt. But I feel like, especially, they're both carries, I think, perform better in like calm, structured team fights. Rahel seems like really an AD carry. He has 2 career games on Ziggs, and that's the only mage. A lot of AD carries though haven't played in very heavy like mage metas, so that doesn't
real AD carry.
That doesn't mean
not playing any of these cheap mages.
But he kind of had to play in like 2018.
But he also, when you see him play, he also does seem very much like he really likes the attack speed AD carries, I feel like.
he's really open-minded with his builds as well.
When you say that too, it has a little bit of a negative connotation.
Yeah.
He's
yeah.
open-minded.
Yeah, that's intentional. Some of his builds are complete trash. So, yeah, that is what it is. Yeah, I like. Sometimes was he the dude who full on rush a Serpent's Fang first item, or was that somebody else? But I remember on Corky we saw some pretty reportable build. So yeah, I feel like if you're gonna play AD carry, like you really gotta get the itemization down. You need the crit items. You need the IE. You need the lower DOMs.
Especially now, because like that is one of the reasons why we're seeing mages bot, right? Is like their itemization just allows them to spike a lot more quickly. So.
All right, Sentinels are our consensus number 5. Shopify, it looks like down the line. Okay, we all have
number 6.
Yeah, we all have Shopify as number 6 as well. And Shopify is one that are also coming in with a player roster change. And what I think is also very important is they added a GM. David Hahn was assistant GM for Cloud9 for a long time. And then I believe also at the end, maybe a heavier hand. I don't know if he actually got the title of.
I think he was GM
of
Might need a
GM.
fact check, but
he
thought
he was assistant GM for a very long time, and then obviously moved up the ranks and had some more power there too. And so he's moving from Cloud9 over to Shopify. I think this is very big because he gave an interview with David Shynock and had some, I think, very like hard-hitting headlines that he is positioning as what the changes are going to be for Shopify. And one of the biggest ones to me is he had this quote about when he joined Shopify, he approached the players and the staff and was like, "You have to prove to me that you deserve to be here."
Yeah.
And for people that have like, since Shopify, this organization has joined the LCS, people have been like, we're not seeing like a whole lot of, energy
Direction.
or movement. Yeah, really direction out of them. They did have a good playoffs run. And they have people get behind them when like Contracts has a really good game or pops off. But aside from that, it hasn't really brought out a lot of emotion in fans or, one way or the other. And so I think that this, like taking a hard line and being like, we're not going to be okay with mediocrity and you have to prove to me that you deserve to be here to like every single position. I think this could be a huge, huge change for Shopify in general. And it also puts a lot more pressure on the players now for every stage game that they play. This split now, that's in your head. Once your GM comes up to you and tells you, "Hey, you got to prove to me that you deserve to be here," you're like, "Whoa, okay, well."
I guess I'll start trying now. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that it's good if there's a team where the GM feels the need to say that to the players. I'm really questioning what they were doing beforehand because I would assume most people who are playing pro are giving it their all. But if they're not, then obviously, they probably shouldn't be there.
Yeah. And coaching staff too. That I think that was an important part that he kept in there too. So it's not just players. Yeah.
I mean, wow. Are they really 5-23 total record this year?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
all right. Yeah.
Wow, and they're number 6, so we got teams below them.
I think.
Wow.
So I think the thing or like the missing piece in terms of like looking at Shopify as a team, because I think talking to their players, talking to coaching staff last split, it was kind of like, oh, if we can only get there, like we're still having some like internal communication issues. And in my head, I was thinking like, oh, okay, it's like Sydney coming over and having to learn, how to operate in a different culture, learn a lot more English, be able to communicate with his teammates, be able to also just learn the game coming from like still, yes, I know like LCK Challengers is a really good and going to produce some of the best players in the world. However, you still have to learn a lot more of the team game in any tier 1 environment because it just matters a lot more. And then try to keep up your individual play. And I was thinking like, oh, okay, these are their problems, right? However, I don't know if either of you watched, Shopify put out a documentary that was actually like really interesting because it was so raw. Like nothing is ever going to top Breaking Point for me ever. Like that's just iconic. Like if anyone wants to watch like anything in esports, there's like a few things I would recommend them to watch, and Breaking Point is actually one of them. And this is kind of the closest I've seen to getting to just watching players in kind of a more raw environment. And it does not, like, they do not all come out looking good, like both players and coaching staff, right? And so I think if people want to know what's going on with Shopify, I recommend watching that. But like B, I think it showcased that their communication issues for this team were a lot more deep-seated than like, oh, their mid laner is coming from Korea and needs to like learn English, right?
Yeah.
So I think, to your point, having David Hong come in and having just at least a clear direction top down of being like, this is what I want the team to be, could end up helping in a situation where it seemed like, especially towards the end, like a lot of people were kind of at a loss of how to communicate with each other or like what the team direction even looked like. And there are a few really nice glimpses. Like I know, yes, the mid lane Xin did not work out when they played it, but like I actually really appreciated that this was something that they had prepped in scrims. They'd played before, they'd had success before, and they were like, okay, you know, backs against the wall, we're gonna try to like believe in ourselves and do that. Like I actually really liked that. I liked talking to Contracts about it afterwards. I thought he had some insane individual performances to even get them to a point where they could be you know, in playoffs. So I think, again, like maybe having some sort of like firmer direction could end up helping, hopefully. Because that was like the missing piece of your point where like I would hope they'd be trying. And like I don't think it is that they're not trying. I think that they probably had this kind of continuous breakdown in like overall communication between the players, between coaching staff and players.
Yeah, well, oh, sorry.
No, and I think like maybe that could like help. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Shopify was, even though their record is super bad, they were ahead in a lot of their games. They were the team that when I would watch them, it was just one of those like, so how do they find a way to lose this one? Because I think they actually had good early games. I think Contracts is, you know, he's always been a really good early game jungler. He's somebody who's great at finding plays. He doesn't play like Inspired at all. He doesn't have the controlled, I'm gonna like be really efficient and choke you out play style. He's more just like the agent of chaos. He's like, you know, I'm going to like make a play that you didn't expect, and if it works out, it's going to be really good, and if not, then it's going to be really bad. So he's kind of like the wild card jungler, but to his credit, I think he does work out pretty often. But this team, for some reason or another, just finds a way to lose games. That they would be up, you know, a few thousand gold, have some dragons, and then it's like, boom, third dragon fight. Oops, like somebody got caught, everybody died. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm still waiting for Zinni to wake up personally. I think this guy had so much hype around him. People were saying like, you know, he's like the biggest import from Korea in years, and he's not really done anything yet. He's looked pretty like not great. So I think it's possible. I could still see a world where it's like, okay, you know, now he's comfortable. Maybe there was something keeping him from playing at the level he's supposed to be at, and now he's fixed that, and he's owning now, which would be cool to see. But you know, definitely haven't seen it yet. He's looked pretty under par.
Yeah.
So,
I was just gonna say it made me really sad as someone who watched him in Challengers, because he was on KT Challengers, so I did watch him over there. I think there are like glimpses of hope in terms of, I remember that, and I also, to your point, Meteos, think they might have lost that game, the Azir Poppy game.
They've lost a lot of games.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zinni hasn't won any Azir games yet, so it's a safe bet.
We'll leave because like they're kind of all blurring together in my mind, so I'm sorry to our listeners and viewers. But there were some really, really nice coordinated plays between him and Contracts, so I'm like, oh, okay, if they can keep this up and use this as a springboard forward, like if their synergy improves, to your point, because Contracts is such a huge part of a lot of their early game success, their Azir Poppy combos in that specific game, I was just like, oh, okay, like this is what I had wanted to see from these two working in tandem together.
Well, the second point that David had that I thought that was very impactful on the interview was he mentioned that he not only felt an obligation to commit to finding North American players into the tier 2, scene in North America, but he wants the North American players on his roster to be the superstars. And that opinion coming from the GM is impactful in North America when there's a lot of fans that have been kind of clamoring for that. Now, I will say he is coming into a team where contracts, the North American player is already, I think, the best player on this team. People would maybe not say he's not a superstar, but I think he is the best player on the team, and certainly a star for the team, especially with some of these like hard carry Olaf games. And he certainly had his fair share of like 1v9 games, especially towards the end for Shopify. So I think that is very interesting and also bodes well for the future as far as, him really trying to look at North American like tier 2 system, maybe, maybe get back some of our North American players that have been leaving North America would be great as well. And does also kind of put some weight behind the, like, you got to show me that you deserve to be here type thing. Or like, maybe they will find replacements in the future. And so I do think that is very interesting because this already feels like a team where one of our biggest win conditions when we bring up Shopify is usually like, is Contract's going to be having one of his really good games? Is he going to be able to hard carry? Is it going to be a draft where he gets to play Olaf or like his Wukong game? Also, he had a really big Wukong game towards the end there too. So I think that is probably going to remain true for Shopify for this split. Obviously, this split is the big change is Zeyzal, of course, for the bottom lane. And Zeyzal is going to be returning to Shopify. He played on Shopify previously. But I don't expect his impact initially this split to be that big. And so I'm mostly going to be looking at the valuation of Shopify this split and looking into next year as being very interesting.
Yeah, I like the Zeyzal pickup. I like how David talked about wanting to like pick up North American players because for Tactical and Zeyzal both, I think they've both been like crushing it in tier 2. And so I definitely have a soft spot for those players who have played for a while and, they don't find LCS teams. And a lot of the times it's kind of like, GG, that's it for you because teams and fans alike most time are just interested in like the new up and coming talent, like the promising 18-year-old in solo queue or like the latest young LCK challenger player who's coming over. And so a lot of times people who have had their chance and maybe didn't do as great as they would have wanted get overlooked. And so I think the fact that they've kept grinding, done really well in tier 2, and they've got another shot now is a super cool story to me. So I'm definitely going to be rooting for them. And not coming into the best team, obviously, with Shopify, but if in one way it's kind of like not a lot of expectations, can't get a whole lot worse. So,
but it can get some worse because we have 2 more teams here. So the next up, both of you guys had DSG as number 7. I had a little swap here again where I bumped up Dignitas after their change, but let's start with DSG because you guys both had them at number 7, and they made their change at the end of last split. So we already got the preview with Surdy coming back, and honestly, Surdy looked really good coming back in onto the team. DSG incorporated him well, and he was performing well individually.
Yeah, I think for me, this is like looking at Dig. I'm going to talk about them in tandem a little bit because looking at Dig and DSG is kind of like, I'm really unsure how both of these teams are going to fit in the meta. With DSG, I think their top side is really interesting, specifically to your point, where Surdy did come in. I thought he looked really good in a kind of an emergency situation with Lyon kind of plucking Castle, and now Castle is gone, like which is unfortunate for him, but I do think Surdy, to his credit, like stepped in and did well. I still think I remember back when we were kind of looking at the construction of this DSG roster, it really was supposed to be all about Kryra and kind of his jungling and his ability to play carries and stuff like that. And I still think that can be the case with this team. Where I'm concerned is, again, because jungle support working together is super, super important. And also where bot lane flexibility is super important. I'm looking at their bot lane specifically and being like, I don't know how I feel about this, especially in the new meta. And already, I think outside of a few Sejed pop-off games on Kai'Sa, they seemed to, like, he started out so promising and then seemed to really, really struggle against a lot of the LCS ADCs. Lions also has had some really, really rough showings. And I think with how important it is to get your support out on the map, that could be potentially a problem area for them, where when I look at Dignitas, it's kind of the opposite, where they have a new top laner coming in. So I'm actually really curious to see how Denethor works out. I'm also curious if he's ever done an interview as to why he picked Denethor specifically from Lord of the Rings. Terrible father. But Denethor, not Denethor the character. Sorry. But then with XU and Palafox and all the stuff that happened last year, with FBI and Ignar kind of being the more solid piece of that, and Ignar being, I think, a lot more comfortable with engaged supports, a lot more comfortable with roaming on the map. It's kind of the tale of like two sides of the map with these teams in terms of how they'll fit into the upcoming meta. So yeah, I'm super curious. That is why I gave DSG the slight edge. Because I would love for Denethor to come in and pop off, because I think that'd be an amazing story. I think he's kind of been overshadowed by other NACL top laners, but has been consistently like good during his time on Withrop. So yeah, like I think that could be really interesting depending on how he fits. But because that was such an unknown, I did give the edge to DSG.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, also DSG got more time to practice with Serdian because they added him earlier. So they may be peaking more.
Yeah, I think both of these teams, like Dig and DSG, have like some pretty glaring weaknesses that doesn't seem to be any easy solution for. I think that DSG's bot lane, like Sajed and Lions, have just seemed like the weakest in the league by a pretty good amount. Just hard losing 2v2 a lot of the time, just making mistakes, getting caught out, just overall not performing as well as anybody else. So I think that's really hard with just how important the role is. It's like, if you have a losing bot lane, you're playing an uphill battle just from the very beginning. It's like your best scaling person on the team, and you're the most control for your map, and they're just getting blasted. So what can you do? I think that's tough, honestly.
True jungler right there, baby. I feel you.
You're just like, you know what? You guys are on your own.
I'm pathing top, and they're getting dove.
Yeah, I claim support diff all the time as the enemy support comes to foil my jungle plans. But I 100% agree, and that's kind of why I don't know. I'm just making a wild bet here on Dignitas coming out ahead, because also all the positive stuff that a lot of FBI's previous coaches talked about him for their bottom lane, and for Dignitas side, him being a really good shot caller. I'm hoping, because I also had heard some stuff about Photon maybe being hard to work with / communicate with. So maybe the top lane change will help this team have more focus in their game plan and be able to execute that way.
Wait,
But
do we know who Dig's jungler is going to be?
XU.
yeah,
He's staying.
XU staying. Which actually is also it's a very after the interview he gave.
Yeah, that's why I said after all of this stuff.
You should say the quote of the interview that because the headline was, well, what was the quotable headline? I think it was XU at the end there. His like kind of interview at the end of the split was, for a pro team, you need to trust each other and believe in each other's skills or something.
It was like like each other, to respect each other, something like that. And it was just like, yeah, that's not the case here. And I'm just like, wow, that was crazy. Bleak. And then that was before even their last game. And I don't know, man, it was actually hard to watch Dignitas play in some of their later games, a lot of their games, but especially their later games. I think that Palafox and XU were in the same way that DSG's bot lane was kind of like at the bottom, I think that Diggs mid jungle combo was just absolutely getting rolled by everybody. I think they every once in a while would have a decent game, but then the next one they just go right back to just feeding their brains out. And bot lane's important, but mid jungle also pretty important. I think that if you just have zero control over the map, then your side lanes can't play. And so, to some extent, every role matters, right? And so if you just have this huge weakness where you're consistently getting deficits, then you're just having an uphill battle. Yeah. Like, there's just not that much you can do if you have this like huge hole in your ship or whatever, and you're just like everyone's trying to just bail you out immediately when the game starts. It's not like you're playing to push your advantage. It's just like, oh God, like we're super behind. We're just getting gapped everywhere. Like, what can we do to not have this mistake happen and this mistake happen? Like, how can we avoid losing in these different ways? And so that's oftentimes what happens with these bottom teams. And yeah, man, it was so hard to watch Dig in their last few matches. It looks so lifeless.
And I will say, as much as maybe it was hard to coordinate with Photon, individually, I think in the majority of games, he was the best individual player on Dignitas that we saw in these games. There were definitely some moments where FBI and Ignar, especially FBI's Senna game, I remember, absolutely popping off. And then Ignar had a vintage All-Star game as well. So like there's definitely, their bottom lane also had some bright spots, but individually it felt like Photon performed well. So that's why also the top lane change is very risky. Although, maybe they can work better as a team with new top laner. But you also reminded me, like XU in that interview, he said he was considering retiring because of the previous split playing on Dignitas. And so that certainly is something that is very difficult to salvage.
Are we sure he's staying? I have never seen a more I'm out post than that. That is so wild.
So maybe they've been able to rebuild the mental and rebuild the internal team dynamics.
That would be the rally of the century.
That
would be the
biggest
kind of awesome
rally
ever.
See, honestly, I will say, do think again to reiterate, this meta is really nice for Ignar and FBI. I think FBI can be incredibly flexible. I think he can take care of himself well in a 2v1 as Ignar kind of just roams around, does his thing. And then, the other question is how Denethor is going to come onto the team and how well he's going to be able to like coordinate with the rest of the team as well. So,
all right, it's time for predictions for our first matches of the summer split here for LCS. Let's start with FlyQuest versus Lyon. What's your prediction, and what's the biggest difference maker? FlyQuest versus Lyon, the banger opener.
I'll pick Fly, Yeah. I'll pick Fly just for fun mostly. I don't even necessarily believe it, but I think just Lyon without Inspired, that's super tough. That is every single team Inspired's been on. He is just like the absolute leader. He is just like the driving force. And now they're playing without him. I think the rest of the team's good, but maybe it'll be hard because on one hand, every player, I know this from personal experience, when you have that burden of leadership, it's like you're not only worried about what you're doing, now you have to be worried about what other people are doing and getting them to do what you want. That takes a huge toll on your own personal play. So I think that is actually going to be really hard for Lyon. And FlyQuest, I don't know, man. They can surprise you. I think they're fun to watch, and they look pretty good at the end of the last split. So, I think they can do it. I think they can beat Lyon with a sub.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I was picking FlyQuest also, and my biggest difference maker was going to be jungle, because with Lyon,
Big G,
or at least it being on the front page that Armeo is going to be the fill-in for Lyon, I think that Griffin will be set up to be the big carry. And if you have a jungle carry that likes to play, Shyvana and Nasus and stuff, Emily, I feel like if this is the time to upset Lyon and take down Lyon right at the very beginning. So yeah, I think that's my prediction, and that's my biggest difference maker. What about you?
Yeah, same. I mean, the last time they faced, we saw the newest edition of Jugger something with the Lulu Nasus, the Jugger Dog performance. I think some of that was instead of a jungle substitution, they were played Castle in the 2 games they lost, and then Dokla played in the 1 game that Lyon won during that series. However, I do think with Inspired Out, this is kind of perfect time for FlyQuest to come in, make a really big statement about the fact that they do want to contend to like really win the LCS, and they are very dangerous. And we've already seen flashes of how dangerous this team can be. Like I already said, I think it's a really good meta for them. Saved some worries about Cryogen that you'd already brought up, Meteos. But yeah, like I actually think it's a perfect time for FlyQuest to just come in and like make a really strong statement.
All right, what about Dignitas versus Sentinels? Back-to-back
Sentinels.
predictions.
Yeah, I mean, I stand by what I said about both of these teams. I think the jungle support duo, specifically of Hambach and Huhi, can be so dangerous and just really difficult for opposing teams to deal with because of how aggressive they can both be on the map, both in terms of just invades and like invading for camps, but also Huhi randomly showing up in top lane, like randomly showing up in mid lane very, very early. I think he specifically sees the map so intelligently, and he's able to help lanes outside of bot really well. My only concern for Sentinels is again, like I said, how well, if they are pinched in terms of bot lane specifically, how well Rahel might be able to operate on something outside of standard ADCs, because I think he's already had some struggles there. But yeah, I think I'm going Sentinels.
Yeah, I also am going Sentinels. I think biggest difference is going to be mid jungle, Darkwings and Hambach over XU and Palafox. I think mid jungle is going to control the map.
I agree with your assessment. I am also going to pick Sentinels. I mentioned before, but I think they're better than the worst teams. And I think Dig is probably the best team.
All right. What about TL versus C9 then?
Ooh, this
off the back of that.
This is a really tough one. I feel like I go either way, but I'll pick C9 for this one for the reason that I think C9 typically, historically, I feel like they win a lot of these first game of the splits, especially when they're going up against the team that finished better than them in playoffs, in the sense of I think their off-season motivation's a lot higher than TL. like unironically, because TL's, like they went to MSI, they put up like some good fights, they looked pretty decent. They're coming back feeling pretty good, right? But C9, they are just in true despair the whole offseason. They are feeling like absolute failures. They're putting everything into practicing. They're not slacking off at all. And then we've seen this every single time. It's like regular season C9. They treat that shit like world finals. And I think they just are going to be able to take TL. I think it could go either way, but I just think it's more likely C9.
And it's 7 versus 5.
Yeah, exactly. That's 2 more men.
How can you
That's true.
How can you beat those odds? I want to know if they're going to use all 7 players in the series.
In the same time.
Swap them out line changes and hockey.
You have to make a deal with the enemy team or something.
Just 2v3 bot, 1v2 mid. What the hell?
Yeah, but I want to know if they're going to swap, between individual games here within the series. But as far as my prediction, I'm going to stick with the same logic I had for the power rankings with TL. I think they're coming in super hot off of their improvements, and I think their motivation is going to be how they were able to look competitive versus T1, but still not win the game. So you still are pissed, but you're not in despair. Maybe. So they'll be able to keep up that.
Oh my gosh. Emily. I also picked Team Liquid. I agree. This is the closest, I think, match that we have actually. Well, also Shopify and DSG could be pretty close. Actually, no. Yeah, they're all pretty close. Never mind. But I think the really cool thing about TL and C9 is that these are still 2 teams that we're expecting at the top of the table. The reason why I'm giving TL the edge is because I think even with not making it to the MSI main stage, they will be able to carry the momentum specifically around their top side, with both of their solo laners having stepped up massively, both in playoffs and on the MSI stage. I think this is even if his mechanics maybe fall back a bit, I still think it's a really good meta for core. I think Jose and core can be an incredibly strong jungle support duo. And I'm just not as certain in terms of what C9 are going to do and what they want to run. Like I said, I'm going based off of the Super Invitational where they went Loki and Sven and APA and Tactical. The roster the roster permutation I'm actually most excited about is the APA Tactical one. Just it's the more volatile one, but also I think that's why it could potentially be like like the potential for underperforming is maybe slightly stronger, but the potential for overperforming and look like really, really good, I think, is also there. So I definitely think it goes 3 games. And I'm just giving it the edge to kind of TL and specifically the way their solo laners stepped up and also jungle support synergy.
Yeah. And Core was looking like his prime. All right, the last one then, Shopify versus DSG. What you got?
I said Shopify. This one was actually pretty hard because again, like despite the fact that I did put Shopify over both DSG and Dig, there's a lot of variance in how this team can play. But I do think they should win this. I think Zeyzal in particular seems like a very like stabilizing presence to have on a team. I don't know if that's just like my perception of his personality, but like it seems like that would work, actually could partner really well with how volatile sometimes their games do end up being based on Contrax's jungle style. So I'd be curious to see if he leans into that and starts roaming more, or if they go for really hard 2v2 bot lanes, which I think would probably be B-Boy's preference. Because when we've seen him pop off, it has been on stuff like the Ezreal, which is like, I think the most played AD carry, like traditional AD carry right now in Kespa Cup, and still really strong on the patch. The Lucian, obviously. So I'll be curious to see where Zeyzal ends up fitting in there. But yeah, that I am giving them the edge over DSG. I think just because I do believe a little bit more in not only their bot lane, but also just Contrax's ability to really control the early game. And I believe less in DSG's ability to necessarily set up those kind of comeback fights that they would need to have against a Shopify lead, like early to mid lead.
I also am going Shopify, but I'm very hesitant because I see this as which one's going to be stronger. You know, DSG, I think their bottom lane is a real weakness, but Shopify, I think both solo lanes have shown real weakness. In their games, you know, in their games where, and you think back to the ones where Contrax is hard carrying at the end of the split, the Olaf, and he's like 10-0, and you look up at the gold, and the gold is almost even. You're like, what the hell? Where's that coming from? And then both solo lanes are down like 3,000 gold each, and you're like, whoa, you got like a 10-0 Olaf on your team. Like, play the jungle, guys, or you know what's going on here? But on the other side, then I'm like, well, their bottom lane, I think, is gonna be have a big advantage over Disguise bottom lane. So maybe their solo lanes, might have issue, or but their bottom lane might have an advantage. And if your bottom lane has an advantage, then Zeyzal does get more like roam time and get to have an effect. And people have always talked about who have played with Zeyzal that he does communicate a lot and very effectively, and so maybe he has this calming effect on the team, and his large beard and his very
just has the aura.
calm demeanor really brings the focus. So I think I am going to go Shopify, and I'll be very curious to see, especially as far as solo lane matchups, how the Surdy versus Fudge one goes, because I think Fudge was really underperforming, and I do believe that he has the capability to perform much better than we just saw from him last split. And so I feel like this is a matchup where versus Surdy, you gotta do it now, or else you're gonna continue to like lose ground over the split.
Yep. I think I will also go with Shopify for similar reasons. I think the new motivation they have from having David come in and just say like, hey, prove you need to be here. Because to me, Fudge is a player who's been he's really streaky in the sense that like he goes in and out of form more than most players. And I think when he's in form, he looks pretty solid. But then there will be other periods, sometimes it's a match, sometimes it's like a few matches in a row where it's just like, wow, like he looks so bad. So I think with proper motivation, he could look pretty solid. But at the same time, at the end of last split, like you said, their soul laners were kind of dead weight in a lot of those games Contracts was carrying. I remember there's one game where it was like, just put Zinni on Anivia and Fudge on Scion. That way, at least when they die, they do something else, right? It was just like, wow, like Kog'Maw Karthus coming up next for them or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think DSG's bot lane, they would have to level up so much in this offseason for me to feel like they could win. I think that's just such a hard thing to overcome. They really look like they were getting gapped last time we saw them. So I would still correct Shopify.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us here on The Dive, driven by Kia. Emily, thank you for joining us so much. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. Also, leave a comment. The LCS returns this Saturday, July 25th at 1 p.m. Pacific, as FlyQuest takes on Lyon as well. We've got a show match, TSM versus CLG, Friday. Before then, we've got some special guests.